The snow hadn't stopped falling for 2 days in the sleepy mountain town of Silver Pines, nestled in the quiet folds of the Canadian Rockies. The entire landscape looked like something out of a Christmas card, until the silence was shattered by the scream of sirens and the glow of orange flames slicing through the white dusk. It was 6:42 p.m. when the fire trucks pulled up to 117 Pine Creek Drive. Flames roared from the roof of the Murray family's cabin, their lifeline of memories, built over 2 generations, now turning to ash in minutes. The cold wind only seemed to push the flames harder. Neighbors had rushed out in thick coats and slippers, helplessly watching as the inferno consumed the home. Only one family member had been confirmed outside. Liam Murray, 72, was sitting in the snow with a blank stare, his lips trembling, not from the cold, but from shock. Firefighters gently helped him into a heated ambulance. "My grandson, he was inside," Liam whispered, barely audible. But the paramedics weren't listening. They were distracted by the sound of a dog barking. From behind the burning wreckage, a massive German shepherd emerged, singed around the edges, his paws bleeding, nose raw. It was Titan, the family dog, and he wasn't barking at the fire. He was trying to dig into the rubble. Titan's paws worked frantically, flinging splinters of smoldering wood and chunks of melted insulation. Firefighters tried to shoo him away, worried for his safety, but nothing could stop him. He growled, barked, then whined, his body half covered in soot, his breath heavy with smoke. "Let him dig," shouted an older firefighter named Joe McGrath, tossing his helmet aside. "Dogs don't do this for nothing." The others paused. The dog had buried himself nearly waist-deep in ash, tail stiff, nose pressed to the earth. Then he did something that made even the seasoned fire chief freeze in place. Titan let out a long, mournful howl. It was a sound no one in the crowd would forget. "Check under there," McGrath ordered, rushing toward the dog with a shovel. Within minutes, the digging crew uncovered a collapsed section of the hallway. That's when they saw it. A small hand covered in soot, fingers barely moving. It was 7-year-old Evan Murray, still alive. "Medic! We need a medic!" echoed across the snowy street as Titan whimpered and licked the boy's cheek. Paramedics pulled Evan from the rubble just in time. His pulse was faint, breathing labored, but he was alive. His tiny lungs had taken in too much smoke, and he had burns across his back. But there was a heartbeat, and that was more than anyone expected after the ferocity of the blaze. Titan, now lying beside the gurney, refused to leave the boy's side. Even as paramedics loaded Evan into the ambulance, Titan jumped in behind them, ignoring everyone's protests. The boy's hand was barely able to move, but his fingers curled around Titan's fur. That night, the town of Silver Pines stayed awake, not just for Evan, but for the dog that saved him. At Silver Pines Medical Center, the ER was buzzing. Doctors worked to stabilize Evan, while nurses cleaned soot from his lungs and wrapped his burns. Meanwhile, in the corner of the waiting room, Titan lay curled up, silent now, his eyes locked on the ICU doors. The vet had offered to take Titan in. Animal control had offered too. But Titan wouldn't move. "He's guarding him," said Liam softly, now out of shock and watching from a hospital bench. The hospital eventually made a rare exception. They let Titan sleep in a corner of Evan's room. The staff couldn't explain it, but Evan's heart rate stabilized when Titan was nearby. The boy, unconscious and hooked to machines, gripped a piece of the dog's fur in his bandaged hand. Word of the rescue spread quickly. By morning, the photo of Titan digging through the rubble was all over local news. "Hero dog saves boy from house fire in the snow," flashed across every screen in the country. But as the cameras rolled and the town hailed Titan as a hero, something else was discovered, something buried deeper beneath the rubble, something Titan had tried to reach but couldn't. And when firefighters returned to investigate, they found it. And what it was broke everyone. 2 days after the fire, the snow finally stopped. Sunlight glinted off the melted icicles. Hanging from the blackened ruins of the Murray cabin Bar officials had begun their second inspection. Now that the site had cooled, Titan had returned with Liam, and as soon as his paws hit the ash-covered snow, he pulled toward the rubble again. But this time, it wasn't the same spot. He circled the back of the house, where the bedrooms used to be, and began digging again. His nails scraped over burnt flooring, kicking up smoke and embers, ignoring Liam's soft calls. A younger firefighter, Avery, followed curiously. "He's trying to tell us something again," she said to her partner. "Same as before." So they let him, and just like before, he found something, about 4 feet down, behind what used to be a dresser. The crew uncovered a scorched blanket wrapped tightly around a small metal box. Inside, it was a collection of letters, photographs, and something else. A silver locket, with 2 names engraved, Helen and Evan. Liam sank to his knees when he saw it. His hands trembled as he picked it up, brushing the soot off the edges. The box had been Helen's, his late daughter Evan's mother, who had passed just 3 months earlier. Evan had hidden the locket under his pillow every night since. Titan hadn't just tried to save the boy. He was trying to save the boy's last connection to his mother. That night in the hospital, Liam sat beside Evan's bed, clutching the restored locket. The boy was still unconscious but stable, his small frame hooked to oxygen and IV drips. Titan rested with his chin on the mattress, eyes wide open, watching every breath the boy took. "Your mama gave that to me before she passed," Liam whispered, stroking Evan's hair. "Said you always held it when you missed her." Doctor said Evan might not wake for days, but they underestimated the bond between a child and his dog. Because just as Liam finished speaking, Evan stirred. His fingers twitched, his lips parted with the faintest whisper, "Titan!" Liam blinked, frozen. Titan stood instantly, his tail wagging gently, ears perked. Then Evan opened his eyes. Tears rolled silently down Liam's face. The boy's first words after waking weren't about the fire and or the pain or even his grandpa. They were for the dog who dug through hell to bring him back. Evan's recovery was slow but steady. Each day brought a little more movement, a little more strength. And through it all, Titan never left his side. Nurses and staff joked that the room had become a 2-patient suite, and they even brought in a blanket for Titan to sleep on. But not all wounds were visible. Titan had sustained injuries too, deep burns along his left flank, paw pads cracked and raw, and signs of smoke inhalation. A local veterinarian, Dr. Harlan, volunteered to treat him free of charge. He carefully cleaned the burns and administered pain medication. "You've got yourself a warrior here," he told Liam. Most dogs would have given up. He just kept going. A week after the fire, a group of children from Evan's school sent handmade cards. One in particular caught Liam's eye. It had a drawing of Titan wearing a cape, with the words, "Not all heroes wear boots, some have paws." The town agreed. Silver Pines was a small town, but its heart was enormous. When news spread that Liam and Evan had lost everything in the fire, neighbors began organizing. The local church opened a donation fund. The community center hosted a winter bake sale. Volunteers cleared the rubble and offered to help rebuild the cabin. One morning, while Liam was getting coffee at the hospital cafeteria, the mayor herself stopped by. "We'd like to present Titan with a Medal of Honor," she said. "The whole town wants to thank him and your grandson for reminding us what bravery really looks like." A week later, under a snowy sky, the town gathered outside the Silver Pines Fire Department. Evan, now able to walk with help, stood beside Titan as the mayor leaned down and placed a medal around the dog's neck. Applause echoed through the mountains, followed by a quiet chant from the kids. "Titan, Titan!" Evan leaned down and whispered, "You didn't just save me, you saved everything." But even then, Titan's eyes were on the distant snow-covered hills, as if something still wasn't finished. The following morning, Liam stepped out of the hospital for some fresh air. The snow had begun falling again, soft, steady flakes that made the world look peaceful. He took a deep breath and turned to find Titan sitting by the hospital's rear door. Ears alert, eyes fixed on the forested hill across the road. "What's out there, boy?" Liam asked, approaching him. Titan didn't bark. He stood slowly and began to walk toward the woods, without hesitation, and Liam followed. Past the parking lot, past the tree line, through untouched snow that reached his calves. And then, about a quarter-mile in, they found something that froze Liam in place. A second set of paw prints, small, delicate, fainter with every step. They belonged to Daisy, Evan's puppy, a gift from his mom on his 6th birthday. She had been missing since the night of the fire. Everyone assumed she'd been lost in the blaze, but Titan knew better. His nose went to the ground, tail low but wagging slowly. There was still hope, and once again, the dog began to dig, under a cluster of snow-covered pine branches and a thin sheet of ice. They found a hollow space formed between 2 fallen logs, and nestled inside, shivering but alive, was Daisy. Whimpering, covered in soot, one ear burned but alive. She crawled toward Titan as soon as she saw him. He lowered himself to the ground and licked her head gently, whining softly. Liam knelt beside them both, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. "Unbelievable," he murmured. "You brought her home too." Titan didn't bark. He simply stayed beside Daisy until Liam lifted her into his coat and carried her back through the snow. When they returned to the hospital, nurses gathered in the lobby in disbelief. Evan, now able to sit upright in bed, saw the tiny bundle in Liam's arms and gasped, "Daisy!" The room filled with the sound of Evan's voice, the loudest it had been since the fire. Daisy yipped softly and scrambled toward him, as Titan gently nudged her from behind. The 3 of them, boy, dog, and pup, collapsed into each other's warmth, as if they had never been apart. The next few weeks became a season of healing. Evan's skin began to mend, his laughter returned, and his nightmares stopped, thanks to Titan and Daisy curled up beside him every night. Liam, once a quiet and solitary man, found himself surrounded by love again, wrapped in the warmth of a town that had refused to let his family be forgotten. The new house went up fast, thanks to volunteers, donations, and a builder who refused to charge for labor. When Evan walked through the doors of the rebuilt cabin for the first time, he held a frame in one hand, a picture of his mom, Helen, with Titan as a puppy on her lap. "She'd be proud," Evan whispered, "of all of us." There was a new fire burning now, but this time it wasn't made of wood or flame. It was made of love, and it couldn't be extinguished. On the 1-year anniversary of the fire, the town held a candlelight vigil in the square. Snow blanketed the sidewalks, and every lamppost flickered with golden ribbons. Evan, taller now, stood beside Liam on the small stage. In his arms was Daisy, and by his feet, ever faithful, stood Titan, wearing the same Medal of Honor from the year before. Evan spoke into the microphone, voice clear. "I used to think heroes wore capes, but mine wears fur. He saved my life, and he saved what I loved. I'll never forget that night, but I'll also never forget what came after it." The crowd fell silent as Evan knelt down and hugged Titan around the neck. And just like that first night in the rubble, Titan let out a soft, deep howl, one that echoed through the mountains, through the town, and through every heart present. That night, under falling snow, the people of Silver Pines didn't just remember a fire. They remembered a dog who wouldn't stop digging until he'd brought every piece of a broken family back together. And in doing so, he showed the world what loyalty really means.